A couple of days ago, I made a video talking about the opening weekend box office for Fantastic Four. And while I said in that video the opening weekend for the movie was decent, and it also had strong word of mouth on sites like Rotten Tomatoes, it still had some work ahead of it in order for it to be profitable at the box office. Now that we're going into the second weekend for Fantastic Four, according to some of the early projections, it's looking like it might unfortunately follow recent Marvel trends of having a steep drop off in box office revenue. But before we get into all that, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you can, maybe hit the like button too and leave a comment because it really helps out the channel. So I have this article pulled up here from That Park Place with the headline, Fantastic Four projected to see a big box office drop in second weekend, far worse than Superman. Now, I'm not really interested in the Superman comparison, although I do think there is something interesting to be said about that. I'm more interested in how this compares to other recent Marvel movies, and unfortunately it looking like it's going to follow other recent Marvel trends in that they have an okay opening weekend followed subsequently by a steep box office drop. Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four First Steps is showing signs of stumbling early after a front-loaded debut that exposed the weakness of the modern Marvel brand. According to recent reports from Deadline, the film is projected to experience a significant 60% drop in its second weekend at the domestic box office. And if you watch my previous video, I even said in that one, if they have a hold better than, or a 50% hold would have been okay. If it's better than 50%, then that's a strong indicator that this movie has appeal that's bringing in general audiences who might have otherwise checked out on recent Marvel projects. But if the box office hold is worse than 60%, then that suggests that this movie is going to have a tough time reaching profitability. And according to some of these projections, it's looking like that's going to be the case. And that's something that I spoke about earlier because there was already signs that that was going to happen even just before the opening weekend was concluded. We saw front loading from that weekend with a lot of people showing up during the opening days and the early previews. It had a pretty strong opening day, $57.2 million on Friday, which I believe is the second highest opening day for the year behind Minecraft. But then we saw a steep drop between Friday and Saturday. It says here a 42% drop where it made $33 million on Saturday. And when you compare that to other comic book movies recently, Superman had a 33% drop between Friday to Saturday. And I believe something like Captain America, Brave New World, Thunderbolts, those are around the low 20% drops between Friday and Saturday, which all this suggests that Fantastic Four is more front-loaded than previous Marvel movies. And what for people who don't know what that means, is basically the audiences who are interested in watching Marvel projects, basically the hardcore Marvel fans who will watch all Marvel movies, no questions asked, are going to go show up and watch the movie during the opening day or the opening weekend. And then it's not really good enough in order to get repeat viewing, so they don't watch it the subsequent weekends, and it doesn't have enough there to bring general audiences into the fold. So you don't have general audiences watching it not only during the opening weekend, but also in the subsequent weekends. That's why you might have that big splash when it first premieres, and then it has a steep box office drop because everyone who wanted to see the movie already saw the movie and they're not willing to actually go back and see it again. And if that happened when it comes to this movie, then that's bad news for it, because I said there was positive word of mouth surrounding this movie, and that could be enough to bring general audiences into the fold. But you also kind of have to dissect what the positive word of mouth is, because if you look on just Rotten Tomatoes alone, it would suggest that everyone just loves this movie. But if you understand how Rotten Tomatoes actually does things, it's not saying it's 92% because people are giving it a 9 out of 10 or anything like that. They're saying 92% of the people who reviewed the movie said gave it a positive review, but a positive review could just be a 6 out of 10. I mean, if you look at Metacritic, that's kind of what it's suggesting, 6.7. So between 6, 7 out of 10, which is, it's positive, it's decent. I mean, that's kind of where I would rate the movie. But it's not going to be like that excitement that brings general audiences into it. You need like the 9s or 10s out of 10s in order to get general audiences excited, where they're like, oh, I wasn't interested in seeing this movie during the opening weekend, but I'm hearing such good things about it. I need to go watch it right now, or I'm going to go watch it during the second weekend or third weekend whenever I get a chance to. That's not really happening when it comes to this movie. And I think that's why the box office drop is so significant, or why it looks like it's going to have such a significant box office drop during the following week. Looking ahead, the projections for Fantastic Four second weekend are concerning. Deadline reports an expected 60% decline domestically, translate into approximately $47 million, enough to hold the #1 spot, but a far cry from the stability shown by Superman. Other estimates from Variety, an outlet known for being very kind to Disney, suggests a range of $45 to $52 million, implying a 55 to 60% drop. Now, if it was just a 55% drop, that's okay. It's not great for it. I mean, they still have a chance if the movie is performing internationally. But unfortunately for this, it's not performing really well internationally. They've made more money domestically than they have overseas. So they need to have this really overperform domestically in order for it to be profitable for the studio. And for that, they probably need a greater than 50% hold. And it's looking like that's actually not going to be the case, even at the more optimistic estimates for this movie. This would still be worse than Superman's second weekend hold of minus 53%, where it earned $58.5 million domestically and pushed its 10-day total to $236.2 million. Superman's stronger legs are evident in its daily holds during the second week, including a Thursday gross of $10.9 million, only minus 70% from Wednesday, reflecting positive audience reception and repeat viewing comparisons. And this is talking about like what this could mean for the greater Marvel brand as a whole. And what I think it really means is that Marvel just doesn't have the same grasp at general audiences as they used to. Not only that, they don't have the same hold at overseas audience that they used to. I mean, you can look at those numbers. Internationally, they made just under 100 million so far, at least as far as the latest updates on the numbers here, to around $151 million domestically, for a grand total of a little less than $250 million so far. Now, with a budget of around $200 million, this movie probably needs to make at a minimum, I don't know, when you're factoring in marketing costs, around $600 million in order for it to be profitable, likely closer to the $650, maybe $700 million mark. Now, if you look at what this could actually make, Fantastic Four projected drop aligns more closely with underperformers in the MCU like Captain America, Brave New World, and Thunderbolts. If these numbers hold, the film's domestic total could fizzle out around $300 to $400 million, far below the blockbuster threshold Marvel once routinely achieved. Now, when you also consider that they're making a little bit less overseas than that they are making domestically, $300 to $400 million domestic is not really a good sign. Now, if they are kind of at the higher end of that, if they do make $400 million domestically and it's something like $350 million overseas, then I would say that the movie did eke out a slight profit. I mean, it's an underperformer compared to other Marvel movies, but it's still a profit nonetheless for this particular movie. But if it's at the lower end of this mark, where it's making around $300 million and it's around $250 million overseas, then it's probably going to fall shy of actually reaching profitability for this. And ultimately what this means is Marvel lost their appeal amongst general audiences, where in the past general audiences were on board with the MCU. They would go out and watch it during the opening weekend, like the hardcore Marvel fans. Then they would also trickle in during the subsequent weekends, where the hardcore Marvel people who watch it during the opening weekend would also watch it again because the movies would get repeat viewings. That's where you get those billion-dollar hits. You're not really seeing that with Marvel anymore. It's seen as kind of a stale brand when it comes to superhero movies. And while a lot of general audiences are just tired of superhero movies in general, you can see when it comes to Superman that it's performing a lot better than what we've seen with Marvel projects. So I think a lot of that has to deal with the fact that even though it's a superhero movie, it's still seen as something a little bit more fresh than what we've gotten with Marvel. Now, even though this one was probably the most freshest Marvel movie that we've seen in recent years, I mean, it has no ties to the rest of the MCU and it has a completely different look and feel to it. This still wasn't enough to bring back general audiences because it was part of the Marvel brand as a whole. And I think that's probably the greatest issue when it comes to this sort of thing, because Marvel can put out a decent enough movie that looks and feels like it's not just another Marvel movie, and yet people still aren't interested in it, which suggests that Marvel as a brand when it comes to movies is, I wouldn't necessarily say damaged, but just kind of old news and people aren't interested in that anymore. Does that mean they're going to have to stop making Marvel movies? No, not necessarily, but I think they're going to have to significantly adjust their budgets, because in the past they were thinking their ceiling was, or at least their floor was probably around $800-900 million. When now, when it comes to a lot of other recent Marvel movies, they have to think about their floor as maybe probably closer to $500 million. And they have to adjust their budgets accordingly if they hope to actually be profitable, or if they continue on this way, they're just going to continuously lose millions of dollars at the box office. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And if you can, hit that like button and leave a comment, because it really helps out the channel. Thank you.